What's up, you guys? I'm so stoked to break down this Lover track with you guys. Get to hear a little bit of what's going on in like the production process. It's definitely a really unique one because this song means a lot to me. So figured we can go section by section because there's a lot of really interesting ear candy and stuff that I'm excited to show you guys. So I'm going to start with just the intro section. So a huge disclaimer to start with here is that all of these stems are unmixed, and so that's why they will sound a little bit quieter and a little less punchy, and some things are more present than others, and some things are less present than others. The intro is super simple. We just have these drums, where we have Adrian with it coupled with a couple cool like MIDI samples and stuff. So then we have the bass, typical Simon, just holding it down, you know what I mean? One of my favorite pieces of this intro, we have Max's electric. Kind of a little 1975 type vibe pickup with a ba-na-na-na. One cool piece about that is that the last note in that pickup is actually a reversed note of one of the ones he played in an earlier demo take. So it's super fascinating what you can do with all the production and stuff. So obviously I have the acoustic guitar as well, which it's so simple. I only have reverb and EQ on it. But I play a Taylor GS Mini, which just has this really nice warm tone. It's actually hanging right back there, and I really, really love that. So I think the real sauce, though, in this intro is in the ambiance track. So that's what these sound like soloed. So a lot of the time I will go from a demo that's just acoustic and has my vocal going, and I will just toss on a pad to kind of choose a vibe. It usually gets changed later, but this is one that didn't get changed later. It's just this warm, plucky pad that I think it's from Labs. Yeah, it's from Labs. Really, really simple. One of my favorite pieces in this entire song is this guy. What's super fascinating about this is that it's just my voice going like, and then I really messed it up. I put auto-tune on it. So we've got that, a really aggressive EQ. And then I have this crazy Logic stock plugin where it just like clips the crap out of it. And this is actually what it sounds like without it. So it sounds really lame. It's like a mouth trumpet, but it really elevates things. So adding that like reverb and delay and stuff on the side, I think really helped a lot. Then I actually panned that one to the right and added a little vocoder to the other side. And you get that cool effect. I mean, they both have a crap ton of reverb and delay. This is one thing that I think helps move the intro, which is just me going like, super simple, little harmony, tiny pan to the sides. This is a little corny whisper thing I did. Really kind of creepy, to be honest, if you completely isolate it, but it's like a really aggressive EQ, pitch correction, and distortion, kind of the same situation as the other stuff, and it's just kind of whispering like, you're okay, it's okay, which kind of is the vibe of the entire song in general. And then one of my favorite pieces of this entire thing is this, like, vocal chop. To kind of pull back the curtain on that, it's super fascinating. So this is actually from a like co-write that I did with a good friend named Ishani, and this is what it sounds like without anything.
Disconnected.
So I pitched her voice up a whole bunch and kind of like got it to this really interesting register that kind of sounded synthy. That is kind of how we got it to where it is. And then once you put everything back on, then it sounds like this. It's actually super interesting to listen to it this way. Kind of. Yeah, so super weird, but I really love that, and I think it kind of sets the tone for how weird we can get with production as we move forward. So into this first verse we go. Lover, I know the way to what you see. And my vocal production is so simple. I typically send it raw to my mixing engineer, Jack Price, who does all the magic. So it's a really simple chain. I have a de-esser. I have obviously pitch correction. I've got the stock Logic EQ, and then I've got a compressor that I really like. And that is kind of all that's on it other than the reverb and a super slight delay.
And it sure is hard to wipe away.
So we have this cool little vocoder moment happening with the vocal.
Still enough, no matter what.
So that's a cool piece in the ear candy world. And ultimately, the entire first verse is meant to be stripped to kind of give this song space to grow. So all it really is acoustic guitar here, some electric guitar swells, no bass, no drums. We have the pad going like normal, but I took a chop of the demo and I made it interesting like this. So I just kind of made it like a passing car type feel. I did this cool upper octave emphasis situation. Really fascinating, really simple to be honest. And that's another one of those vocal chop things. I actually have no idea what that sounds like without everything on it. That's it. Yeah, and they're kind of panned on both sides, so like it switches. The automation is kind of crazy in this song, to be honest. This easy moment is kind of sick. Kind of sounds creepy, kind of intense, but adds to the moment. And it's from an old demo that I just took the lead vocal of and added a bunch of, I think, tremolo, super distorted. And yeah, that's kind of like the entire sauce of this first verse. But then we go into this refrain where the band comes back in. Yeah, so it really takes this section to the next level for me. Is we have Max doing some cool, typical Max electrics. Just gives it some rhythm that it really needed. Kaylin's trumpets add a whole lot to this section too. Acoustic is still kind of the driving force here, but then our drums kind of pop in, you know. And it's kind of the same ambiance elements that were in the first section in the first place, to be honest. So. Just kind of a wider image. That's what I did with adding the voice memo chop. Actually made them kind of harmonize with each other and go left and right. So that was kind of clutch and cool. So then we go into the second verse, and it's essentially the same thing with all the ear candy, just with the full band.
I know you carry where you've been. Shoulders down.
So it's super simple. The bass is finally giving us some more harmonic information. The electrics are doing a whole lot. So we have Max and David doing very different things here. But they're both panned opposite directions. So it kind of adds this cool wide rhythmic element to it, which I really, really love. He's still doing those swells. Adrian's drums are finally really getting there for us and like sending us somewhere because he takes that little break. Super simple, and those drums obviously were really improved once this whole song was mixed. I think there's only one tiny addition to that verse in terms of like the ear candy, and it's this little easy stutter situation. And I will be so impressed if you can hear that in the master since it's so quiet. Then we get into that second refrain. With the trumpets get a little bit more interesting as well, which is something I love to highlight because Kaylin added these cool things. I think takes the song up a level. In the ambiance, it's actually kind of cool to note that in like the second half of this refrain, I picked up the octave for this guy. So kind of adds, it's kind of cool. Because I wanted something different. I wanted something new, something to add energy. So that's kind of the point of that. So then we get into the bridge. So that kind of concludes the Jeremy Zucker type vibe. And it moves into the more Coldplay, like fix you, like grand element. And what we kind of lean on in that moment, or as the song is progressing that way, is the electric guitars. So essentially, we're listening to Max and David really adding a whole lot to this section. And if we highlight them, they kind of go like this. Each of them are playing a different rhythmic piece too, and on a different register, which I think really adds to the section. We have some cool vocal stacks that get involved in this section as well between me and my friend Gabby. Super fascinating. That's kind of the vibe of this section. The drums are just kind of getting bigger and bigger through this section. Really get there by here. Obviously, once they were produced too, they feel so much bigger. Bass is getting far more interesting, and you can see simply by the rhythm that it gets there. And the trumpets, this really was a game changer for us. We have the trumpets go. Adds so much. Kalen is a freaking madman. Acoustic guitar is continuing to go, but it's being swallowed, but that's kind of how it's meant to be. The ambiance continues with just the pad and like the weirdness here. Yep, we have a little plucky vocal chops there. My vocal just continues to get bigger. Nothing really changes automation-wise. Yeah, so it's really getting there. And then obviously this last moment, as everything climaxes, I wasn't sure where to go. So we decided to take like a moment away and then add this completely foreign, distorted, kind of gross, but like really chaotic and interesting soundscape, which we considered the big drop. But it needed something to kind of segue where you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening next? And that was this little tiny bar. I think it's just a singular bar right here. And that's what you get with all this craziness. We have a whole lot of risers and stuff that add to that moment. Kind of scary, but that's the point, you know? The electrics get super wild in that moment. David adds a whole lot. The horns do this crazy cool chord. Love that chord so much. The big vocal stacks are still happening, and I knew that we needed something to feel way different, and I think the vocal was a big piece. So like I mentioned earlier, I send my lead vocal raw, but I did not send this one raw because I wanted it to just sound disgusting and terrible. So I worked a long time to kind of give it the sound that I wanted. There's like a freaky amount of automation happening on it. We've got like all of this. I mean, the reverb is just getting chaotic, delay doing the same thing. And then like this whole tremolo one, just so much automation in this little tiny section. You can see all the writing happening going on there. So we can pop into that section now. The ambiance in this really is just a pad, but in a big moment, this guy right here, we have so many like synths and flutes are kind of the base of it. And it's supposed to feel foreign, new, and like, oh my gosh, what am I actually hearing right now? And I think that needed to be coupled with these other little pieces, which are like glass exploding, throwing it in reverb, throwing it in reverse, and adding a bunch of other weirdness. So it sounds like this. That chaos is essentially adding to the chaos in the storm, but like you're waiting for the release, you know what I mean? I want this song to feel the same way that sometimes it can feel when you are in that chaos. So my vocals are still going there, like the background vocals. The bass is going wild. I love what Simon did. Oh my gosh, David, the coolest thing in this little section. It paired really well with Max's like chaotic chord. But if you listen to like the crazy modulating moment, that's David's guitar and like harmonic just kind of breaking. It adds so much to the moment, and the horns definitely do something cool here. You get that cool chord from them, which I think rounds out that high end that we were missing because the distortion takes away so much. But as I kind of mentioned, there needs to be a relief. So that relief comes right at the end.
that we will never be too much.
So right there, everything cuts out and you just get a little reverb tail, obviously, but you just get the sweet acoustic guitar, vocal, and the vocoder to kind of remind you of the electronic element of things. So it's also supposed to be a little bit symbolic of like what you take with you through each one of these experiences. It's still there, but you carry it better. You know what I mean? So that can kind of be broken down like this if you listen here.
I promise to commit to you and focus on your heart.
And this is just the stock Logic vocoder that I learned how to do, I think, in I Don't Want You Anyway when I was producing that one, which is a OG tune, if anyone knows that one. The pad is still going, and then I added one of the little vocal chops from earlier just to kind of feed back into that, carrying what you learned. So that's a really big piece there. Bass is still going on just to kind of continue to like ground us. And the acoustic guitar, once again, just being sweet and present. Very wide image on that acoustic guitar, but that's just kind of how it panned out, and it ends up fading out with all these pretty little pad and all the ambiance just kind of fading out, which is kind of just symbolic of like moving forward because you have to, and it'll all still be present. But that's essentially the breakdown of Lover and the production. Let me know if you guys want to see more production breakdowns like this. I really love kind of taking away the veil of how mystical production in songs can really be, because I have so much fun with it, and I think everyone should at least learn a part of it or just like see the back end, because there's so much work and people that go into it. So I produced this one, but just wanted to shout out Jack Price really killing it on the final mix, and then Dan Coutant from Sunroom Mastering absolutely crushing the master, because without that, these songs are just demos and their ears and their technical abilities just go so far. So I hope that this song can mean as much to you as it did to me, because I wrote it in maybe 10 minutes and workshopped it with some friends. I like asked if it needed a chorus or needed something more, and everybody kind of agreed that it's sweet as it is. So I decided to produce it out the way that it kind of came to me, which was these 3 verses and a little bit of a bridge moment. So yeah, if it really impacted you like it really impacted me, I hope you'd share it with a friend, and I hope you learned something through this process. So let's listen to the demo version of everything. That way you can hear what I heard as I was making it and before Jack and Dan made it sound way better, because this has some of the like imperfections that we still had to go back and work through, but this is what I brought to them and said, I love this song. I'm really proud of it. So yeah, this is Lover.
Past us to us. No, it doesn't come easy, but now it's better than yesterday was. Lover, I know you carry where you've been on your shoulders. You need help there, so open up your payments done and breathe while I lift you up. No, it's never gonna be easy. You deserve a life with burdens gone. promise to commit to you and focus on your heart. The world will change, but I'll remain seeing you as heart. It'll never come easy, but loving you is the easy part.
That's Lover. Thank you.